The last thing my father said before slamming the door was, "Don't come back when you're broke." My mother called me the biggest disappointment in the family. My brother laughed as I packed my bags. I had just sold my entire inheritance to buy something they all called a scam. Bitcoin. For the next 10 years, they mocked me at every family gathering. Then one morning, they saw my face on the local business news. That same evening, the family that kicked me out was standing on my front porch, begging for a second chance. My name is Emma Lawson. I am 36 years old and I live in Austin, Texas, USA. 10 years ago, my grandmother passed away and left me an inheritance worth about $180,000. For my parents, the plan was simple. Buy a house, get married, live a normal life. I had a different idea. I'd been researching Bitcoin for months. I believed it had long-term potential. Not because I expected to get rich overnight, but because I believed technology was changing the world. When I told my family I planned to invest my inheritance, they thought I'd lost my mind. My father yelled for nearly an hour. My mother cried. My brother called me an idiot. They begged me to change my mind. I didn't. A week later, I invested almost everything into Bitcoin. The next day, my father told me to leave his house. "You're choosing fantasy over family," he said. I packed my clothes and walked away with one suitcase. The first few years weren't easy. Bitcoin crashed several times. Every time the price dropped, my brother would send me laughing emojis. My parents constantly reminded relatives that I had thrown away grandma's money. Family dinners became impossible. Eventually, I stopped attending altogether. Instead, I focused on my career as a software engineer and ignored the noise. Then everything changed. Over the following years, Bitcoin's value climbed dramatically. I never sold during the panic. I stayed patient. By my mid-30s, my investment had grown beyond anything I had imagined. I quietly diversified into businesses, real estate, and technology startups. Money wasn't my goal anymore. Freedom was. One afternoon, a local business magazine featured my investment company. They published my photo and a story about my journey. Apparently, my family saw it. Because 2 days later, there was a knock on my front door. Standing outside were my parents. And my brother. The same people who hadn't spoken to me in years. My mother immediately started crying. My father admitted they'd been wrong. Even my brother apologized for making fun of me. Then came the real reason for the visit. Their family business was failing. They needed financial help. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then my father quietly said, "We're family." I couldn't help but remember the day he threw me out. Back then, family hadn't seemed very important. I invited them inside. We talked for nearly an hour. I listened to every apology without interrupting. When they finished, I simply said, "I forgave you a long time ago." Their faces lit up. Then I finished my sentence. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. I offered to pay for my parents' medical expenses if they ever needed help. But I refused to invest in my brother's failing business. He had spent years laughing at my decisions. Now he wanted me to risk my future fixing his. The answer was no. As they prepared to leave, my father stopped at the door. He looked around my home and quietly said, "I never should have doubted you." I smiled. "It wasn't the investment you doubted. It was me." He lowered his head because he knew it was true. Today, I live the life I once dreamed about. Not because I bought Bitcoin, but because I trusted my research, stayed patient, and refused to let other people's fear make my decisions. Looking back, I don't feel proud that my family came back begging. I feel grateful I never let their opinions decide my future. Because the day they kicked me out, they thought I was throwing my life away. they never imagined. I was building it,